Hello, and welcome everyone to this conversation about the Center for Social Justice's Police Survey Report. My name is Jasmine Costin. I serve as Vice President of Government and Community Relations at the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. I am joined by two of my colleagues from the Center for Social Justice, and I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting with Candra.
Hello, my name is Candra Reeves. I am the Director of Policy and Data Analytics here at the Center for Social Justice. A lot of my work centers around data analytics, specifically around police reform, trying to not only just see the data that's available here in Hamilton County, but also just analyzing that data, sharing it with the community so they understand what's happening in police departments around Hamilton County.
Wonderful, thank you. And Rickell.
I am Rickell Howard-Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Social Justice at Urban League. In my role, I get to oversee our policy advocacy. I work directly with Candra on which data is important to collect and what story it tells to our community.
Wonderful. I'm excited to be here with you both. Let's dive in. So start by giving us all some insight into the need for a report like this and the context of how the work began. Candra?
So when I first started here at the Center for Social Justice in October of 2020, in October of 2020, one of the things that I started doing was just kind of looking on Google, doing a random Google search to see what kind of data was available here in Hamilton County about policing. Not to my surprise, or kind of to my surprise, because I wasn't really all that familiar or focused in the world of policing in my career. It's been mostly on like the correction side. And so I just assumed that with policing, there would be data available to the community to see what's going on in their jurisdiction. To my surprise, there was not. If there was data, it was very limited, it was from years ago and not current, or that data was not analyzed in a way that would make sense to someone who's not necessarily in this world. So I was like, okay, so how can we start this journey of getting good data that we can share with the community? And so Rickell and I had a conversation about like how we can kind of go forward with this. And so we talked about collecting data. Our goal last year was to collect data from police departments, all 45. Again, to my surprise, was not easy because because there's so many different police departments here, they all do things differently. So they may be using one system to collect their data that this other department isn't. And so what they're collecting over here in this department is not the same that they're collecting over here. Okay. Even the way they define terms, use of force is not defined the same across the county. Okay. And so finding that information was very difficult. Okay. And so how we finally got here was to say, all right, well, since we can't do this on our own, maybe contacting the police departments and asking them, or doing this survey to just kind of get like, all right, let's just get a baseline of like what everyone is doing here. And then we can kind of make decisions after that about, okay, so now we know what's going on. This is how we're going to problem solve this. And so that's kind of how we got to creating the survey.
That's quite a process. Yes. But it sounds like you were able to kind of get into the weeds and use your expertise to really find the data. You mentioned that a lot of the data that was available is not necessarily data that people who are not within the policing world would maybe understand. So give us some high level information or a high level summary of the findings.
So the questions that we asked specifically for this survey were general enough that police chiefs who were responding to their survey would be easy to quickly respond to it. And so we kind of focus on these big areas. So use of force, investigations, what kind of police technology they're using, so like body cams and dashboard cameras, community oversight, what does that look like in the different neighborhoods here, and training. So a lot of these topics are these hot topic issues that have been surrounding the conversation around policing for the last 2 years. And so we really wanted to get high level information about those 4 key areas. So when it comes to body cameras and dashboard cameras, like the types of cameras that are being used in the community when police are out, while a lot of departments do have body cameras, I think the number was 17. 17 departments have body cameras, based on the people that responded. So 17 departments have body cameras, but dashboard cameras weren't as prevalent, which was interesting to me. I'm sorry, I'm going into the weeds here, but
no, it's good information.
And something that we also learned, not only just like with the survey, but just the conversations that we were having with the police departments, is getting access to this type of technology to be able to say, hey, we're recording all our conversations, all of the contact that we have with community is actually quite expensive. And so the body cameras themselves are pretty reasonably priced, but when it comes to like the maintenance and like the storage of that information, it gets really expensive. So when you have these smaller departments around the county that are already hurting for money, and now they want to invest and get these body cameras, because it's not only good for community, it's also good for the police officer.
Absolutely.
They can't, because they're too much, right? And so now when something happens, community's like, well, it's 2022. Why don't you have body cameras? And not understanding that there's a more nuanced conversation that it needs to have when it comes to like this specific equipment. It's like, well, okay, we would love to get body cams, but those cost a lot of money. And like, we're not like, are you going to give us the money to do that? So I think for me, that was the most surprising thing I learned in this process of just like getting information and with the survey. Another high level thing that I wanted to focus on is community oversight. So community oversight looks different across the board. When I think of community oversight, or the way that we defined it in the survey, was just kind of having an independent board that has that residents of that jurisdiction is a part of, where they can hold police accountable and just kind of get an insight knowledge about what's going on there. And so when it comes to the people that responded, there's only four departments that have community oversight boards. While there were some that we've had conversations with in the last year that talked about, trying to form an oversight board, but still it's kind of, alarming is not the right word, but it's just, it's another way that policing feels like a secret. Like they're trying to hide something because community doesn't feel like they know what's going on at their department, or so what's happening next? Why can't we know this information? And so not having a lot of departments with community oversight boards is like, okay, so what are you trying to hide? If you're not trying to hide anything, why aren't you open to letting community kind of be a part of this conversation? And that I kind of lost my train of thought, but do you want to add anything, Rickell?
I think you pretty much covered it, Candra.
All right. Well, Rickell, tell us a little bit about why this information is so important for the community to know. Why was it necessary to do something like this?
Well, for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. First, when there's a critical incident that happens, a police shooting, incident of police brutality, these are the issues, are the questions that communities ask themselves. Where's the body cam footage? Right. Why doesn't this department have body cams? When is the department going to release a statement? How long does an investigation take? And, policing can be very complex once you start reading it, digging into all the policies and procedures.
Sure.
And this was a way for us to let the chiefs provide their own answers that we can then provide to to the community on some of these nuanced issues. Like I said, use of force investigations. I think that I know that when there is an incident of especially deadly use of force, community wants to know right away what is happening to the officers involved.
That's right.
And we rarely get that information. After doing some of our own research and also looking at the survey results, we know that there are several barriers to releasing that information right away. That surprisingly go outside of the chief's, chief may be willing to provide that information to community, but sometimes it's the union contract that protects the officers or may prevent the police chief from being public about it until the investigation is complete. So we ask the question, how long does it take to, complete an investigation, and who does it? Those are the things that we ask ourselves, and we thought that it was important, especially with so many departments here, with different sets of policies, to give a bird's eye view of what you can expect here in Hamilton County.
That's wonderful. It sounds like this was kind of demystifying what many people, kind of going off of what you said, Candra, feel like is a secret, when really it may just be a lack of communication or understanding about those nuances. And so thinking about that, what insight have you all gained as a result of working on this report and collaborating with law enforcement?
I can step in on that first. I was, I think, pleasantly surprised to see the number of chiefs that actually did want to work with us. It's when we've met with departments one-on-one, folks are pretty transparent, willing to provide the data that they do have, pretty open about the things that they can't afford and what the barriers are.
Sure.
We've made recommendations to each and every department we've met with. Some of them are very receptive. Others are like, no, it's okay. But I think that I was really pleasantly surprised coming into it that at least the number of departments that have been responsive to working with the Urban League and the community at the same time is higher than I anticipated. I also was surprised that the Hamilton County Chiefs Association, which is the association for all of the heads of the police departments here, they formed their own ad hoc committee to work directly with us on this survey. And I think initially it's like, just fill out the survey. However, that, and I don't know whether they had foresight here or whether it was just, something that organically happened. Meeting with that smaller group that was dedicated to working directly with us, I think probably helped build a closer relationship. And gave us an opportunity in a smaller venue to explain exactly why we were doing this. And it's exactly what you said, to demystify some of these things that, as community, we're left to speculate.
That's right.
So we actually sent, the report out to the ad hoc committee first before we publicly released it. And we've already gotten some good feedback from some of the departments that are part of that smaller group. And trust me, these are not people that, would mince words. They're law enforcement officers. They're used to, saying what it is.
That's right.
So the fact that we have at least, 2 or 3 folks that reached out to us right away to say, I think it's a comprehensive report, thank you for doing it. I think some of the folks that did not respond to the survey probably were hesitant because they didn't know how we were going to use the information.
Sure. Well, it seems like now that they've seen it and you're getting the feedback from their colleagues, that if for some reason you do it again, that they might be more willing, because it's demystified on the community side now as well, right? So this is that more open communication. Candra, now that the report is public, you talked about, starting with Google searches in October of 2020. What are you hoping will have happen as a result?
Well, I am hoping the departments that we haven't necessarily met with yet, or the departments who responded to us saying that they weren't going to respond to the survey. I'm hoping that they read the report and see like, okay, this wasn't that bad. So maybe it's time for us to have a conversation and just kind of see what they're about. I think for me, I would be really excited about that because again, there's 45 police departments here and we have not even met with half. So being able to hopefully form more relationships from this report would be great. I think another thing for me is knowing being able to see where we are as a county, maybe finding ways that we can share services. That was one of our recommendations in the report. So again, going back to body cams and dash cams, those are very expensive. If there's a way that we can all come together as a county to say, all right, is there a way that we can consolidate this so we're not all paying this piece for this company or this piece for that, whatever, having the ability to say, all right, this is what we need. This is what community wants from us. How can we pool our resources to make sure that we are providing community with what they want us to do?
Sure. Well, Rickell, I would love for you to answer what's next for the Center for Social Justice and your police reform work. You have the report out. I think that it's being received very well by community and law enforcement. So what's next?
So as Candra mentioned, we have a total of 16 recommendations in the report. And we plan to use those recommendations to guide our discussions with local departments because, we came into it thinking we're going to address racial profiling, reduce uses of force, increase accountability and help establish community oversight here. But as Candra said before, we quickly found out that we needed to take a step back and address some very, I would say, foundational issues when it comes to being transparent and having information out there regarding day-to-day interactions with police officers. So, for example, one of our recommendations is to have a statewide requirement for police departments to collect certain data around their interactions with the community. So traffic stops, pedestrian stops. We think that most departments are collecting this somehow, but it's so disjointed. As a resident of Hamilton County, I can't go to one place and find out, what is happening across the county when it comes to police interactions. And that's where we want to get. So we definitely want to have a statewide requirement that would require us to engage with the state legislature here, maybe even possibly the governor. And those are sort of long-term goals for us. And, we're not the only state that's contemplating this. And there are states, several throughout the country, that require data to be collected in a certain way and provide an infrastructure for police to be able to do that. So some type of reporting mechanism.
Sure.
When in terms of the shared services, which is something that Candra had mentioned, I feel like that's low-hanging fruit. We already have a model here in Hamilton County on how municipalities can share service. There's one centralized SWAT team,
That's right.
that serves the county. We have a countywide 911 dispatch and response center. And some of those things are recent developments, and we can use the same model to make sure that these smaller departments can share resources, enter into one contract, and get body cams for all of their officers. Make sure they have the software necessary to be able to be transparent with community, and then also training to make sure that there's not one department here in this county that can say, I can't offer my officers this training because we don't have the budget.
Okay.
You share your resources. And I think that that's a biggie, and I would love to really work with local departments and the county commissioners to see, and other stakeholders, right? Community members, to see how we can make that a reality. I think that would be a huge win, not for us, but for community.
Well, that sounds wonderful. I just want to say that the work is amazing. I've read the report. So proud of the both of you and the passion that you have for this, but also how intently and intentionally you've worked on this report. And I'm looking forward to all of the wonderful ways that Hamilton County will be better because of you all and the work that you do. So thank you all for listening to this conversation. Please download the report, the executive summary, and the fact sheets and read it and share it.
You can find the report, the executive summary, as well as the fact sheets all on our website, ulgso.org/policing-in-Hamilton-County. It's all there.
Thank you.